Good morning. Let me know when you're in. Bear with me here.
The host would like you to unmute.
You're unmuted now.
I know. Good morning. Hold on. I'm trying to see if I turned my video on. And once again, it's not working. Let me do the same thing I did last time. Let me exit and come back. I don't know why this happens. Be right back.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about having your video on for the most part, as long as I can hear, any questions you may have.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let me shut that off. Okay, so I did go into, and I haven't watched the video because the one you sent last night, I haven't opened it up yet.
Okay.
So, why is my computer's not doing anything right now, though? So I started it. So I don't know. My computer's frozen. It's great. And it's being recorded. So when I go back, I'm just going to laugh at myself.
You're fine. You can always fast forward, right, to the place where you need to go.
Nitty-gritty? Okay. Why is this happening? There we go.
Okay, you good?
I'm not sharing my screen, right?
No, you don't. You're not able to.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Jose.
Hey, Andres, how you doing?
Good. My phone's not connecting, but I'll just watch from her computer.
All right, no worries.
Well,
Can you do me a favor when you get a chance? Text me the some of the questions that I had yesterday for you, like how much they're gonna pay in closing costs and all that stuff.
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll send it in the group text so that you both can see. Hold on.
yeah. You're talking about the contract I'm putting together, the offer, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I have a call in with her lender. They actually called me right now.
Okay.
Called them back. But I'm honestly thinking that if she's going to offer $50,000 less, they're probably not going to consent to any help with the closing costs.
It's possible they won't, but let's just go through the motions, and any information that we don't have, I'm just gonna use a kind of a sample, like a dump, like just random numbers, basically. Both of you guys are able to see my screen, or you guys are able to see my screen, right? The MLS, the profile.
Yes.
That's
okay, cool.
So funny. I thought it was my screen and it wasn't moving. That's why I was
yeah, no.
Quiet.
No, I wanted to pull it up. So so I'm gonna kind of walk through this. It'll probably be about 15 minutes, and then write down the questions you have. After the 15 minutes goes, I'll answer all the questions. And basically, I'm going to go through the motions almost like I'm the one writing an offer, and the things that my eyes tend to navigate to as I prepare the offer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So the MLS, Transaction Desk, and Authenticsign is typically the three technology platforms that I'm using. Authenticsign is for most people who are okay signing electronically and not having you to bring the offer in person. Transaction Desk and Authenticsign is all combined in the MLS. So I can go from one screen to another, and it will bring in all the data from that property onto the contract. So it's less information that I have to type in. Okay. I know that you can use .loop. You can even use SkySlope for some of the people who do have SkySlope, where you can write offers. For me, I've done this since 2011 in terms of using Transaction Desk. So it's always what I've been used to. And it's just stuff that I do, real quickly. So I don't change it because for that very reason that I've always been used to it,
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I'm looking at here is I'm going to be looking at two things. When I'm looking at the offer, I'm looking to see if there's any appliances that don't come with the house, because some of that stuff is going to be, you have to type that in manually, right, into the contract. And any information down here I'm paying attention to, like the realtor remarks. Sometimes the appliances or anything that's excluded from the home is right here.
Right.
If you notice, it says here seller is willing to give credit to the buyer towards closing costs, but it doesn't tell you at what price, right?
Right.
So they're assuming, and I know from what I understand in talking to you before, if we go here, I think they dropped price just recently. So when they first enter this into the MLS at 629.9, they probably enter that information about the closing costs at that time. So now that they've dropped it, that may or may not apply. So I guess you're going to find that out as soon as you submit the offer.
Okay.
All the appliances included are here.
Mhm.
And in the contract, there's the legal black and white preset writing that will already include some of these things, but it may not include everything. So for example, the water softener might be something that we have to manually type in. Okay. So those are just things to pay attention to so that there's no hiccups, later on, when you get to closing or when you get to the walkthrough and you're like, hey, is the washer and dryer included?
Mhm.
And it was never written in. So the seller at that time can decide to say, no, I'm going to take that with me because it was never in the contract to begin with. Right.
Right. Mhm.
So it doesn't matter what's in the MLS. It matters what's in the contract. That's your, they could put washer and dryer here that is included, but if it's not in the contract, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the patio furniture or something like that is also included.
Okay. Yeah. So like here, I don't see anything about, I haven't read this part of it here, but I don't see anything about the patio furniture. So I don't know if that's something that the realtor talked to you about. But
No, I thought I read it in the remarks. Not there, above.
so the
Unless it
public
was-
remarks.
Yes. 2 lounge chairs, gas fire pit, backyard areas equipped with TV, table, 4 chairs. Why would they put that there unless they're offering to leave it there?
So that's a good question, right? So the good thing you read this because you're going to want to type that into the contract.
Mhm.
And you can't always trust that whoever entered this information into the MLS, whether it was the real estate agent themselves or an assistant, just know that some stuff won't make sense in the way you would do it to protect your client, right? So it's important to be very clear, and it's important to have everything on the contract, because if your buyer says, hey, I thought the patio furniture was included, and we're just assuming that and it's not in the contract, technically the seller can take it with them. They don't need to,
Right,
even if they put it in the description, they don't need to commit to that. Okay.
right.
The second thing that I'm looking at is the attachments right up here, because these attachments are going to be things that apply to the property that have to be included into the contract. CDD, HOA, seller property disclosures.
Mhm.
Okay. And these things, what's going to happen is that when we get to the next screen of actually writing the contract, you're going to see that it used to be that you would have to download each attachment. I would download the attachment to my desktop into a file folder, and then I
Mhm.
would have to upload it. But it no longer does that. It actually now just grabs the attachments and gives it to you as an option to select as you're writing the contract. And you're going to see that here in a little bit. The one thing you do have to upload, 2 things that I upload is obviously the pre-approval letter. And I actually will print this MLS sheet out and upload that as well. And the reason I do that is because the commission percentage is right here. And if
Mhm.
for some reason someone, and it doesn't happen a lot, but I've seen it, I've heard it happen in the past, where someone just decides to change this on you,
Mm.
right? If they decide to change it on you, and you say, wait a second, it was 2.25 minus 195, not 2%.
Mhm.
you know, if you're a busy person, especially, you know, with personal life, business, whatever, you know, you may forget yourself,
Right.
right? So what I like to do is, you know, whether it's whether it applies to the commission or whatever it may be, I actually like to download this as a PDF,
Okay.
right? And then what we would do is upload it later onto the contract.
Okay.
And for some, and this used to be me kind of in the past, don't worry about your buyer seeing the commission percentage. They know that you have to get paid. You know, they know you have to get paid. And for most part, people are not really going to be paying attention to this. But if they do, it's like, you know, you're not working for free either, right? So, so don't worry about that. That's a very minimal thing for those who would be concerned about that. Okay, so we got that downloaded. Let's just assume we have a pre-approval letter downloaded. I'm going to go ahead and go to transaction desk from this screen. And the reason I say from this screen is because I want transaction to desk to know we're writing an offer for this particular property.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's go in here. It's going to pull this up. If you're not subscribed to transaction desk or the Authentisign feature, you may want to do that if you feel comfortable using this software.
Yeah,
So
no,
if you-
I already signed in yesterday, but I did it right from the transaction desk. I didn't do it from the listing. So I typed in the MLS number.
Gotcha.
Then yeah, it pulled in the data.
Yeah. So that's what you're going to find out about the MLS. There's always like multiple ways to get to specific things. It's just what's more efficient for you
Yes,
in your
I love that.
workflow. Okay. All right. The template. There should be a template in there. If not, you can create one. Honestly, this could be something that your broker actually already has set for you, like for Real Broker in this case, they may have already created this for us, or agents, if they have permission, depending on what's in the settings from the broker, sometimes you can create your own custom templates. You're not having to individually pick documents. Okay, so I'm just going to try this. Honestly, I don't even remember this template, but I'm just going to use it. And add me as the buyer's agent, right? Because we're representing the buyer at this point. Here's the MLS number. I'm going to go ahead and create it. This is clicked off as use the wizard, which is basically just a navigation tool.
It says selling agent. Is that okay?
Yeah, selling
Okay.
agent is the buyer's agent. It's just another
Oh.
way of saying that. It used to confuse me too. The other option is
Mhm.
listing agent. So that's the actual
Yeah.
listing agent. All right, so
Okay, so
we're
I'm at this point right now.
okay. So what you're gonna find out is this is the wizard, and each time you fill in information and you go next, it's basically taking you from top to bottom.
Mm,
Okay. And as you type in information, just know that as you're typing in information, basically what it's doing is it's going to auto-populate the information into the contract. Okay.
okay.
However, I would always still, as you pull up the contract and after you finish entering this information, I would still double check the contract.
Mhm.
Because not everything, for whatever reason, whatever glitch, not everything is
Translates.
in there. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And you'll find out after a while what stuff does and what stuff doesn't. But for the most part, if you notice, a lot of this information is already inputted in here,
Mhm.
just because we went straight from the property to the actual contract. Okay. So we're going to put 550, which is the offer.
Mhm.
Deposit typically is at the minimum 1% of the purchase price. However, it can be higher. And I know this is just a sample one, so we're just going to do that for now.
Mhm.
Balance of the first mortgage. If you notice, this is all for the actual listing agent. So we're not really concerned about filling those things out. I'm gonna put 90. Oh, wait, they're conventional, right?
No, third party.
Do you know like what percentage they're putting down?
Yes, they need to put 20, but because of the price of the house, I think it's more. Hold on. I had it here. 20% of that, they have to because they're going through private lender. And because they went and bought that stupid truck. It's probably gonna be more.
Okay, so let's just put 90%. Since this is not, again, this is just a,
Yeah, no, you mean the balance? No, the financing.
how
is
much they're financing. So
78%. Just put 80. It's fine.
80 grand. So let's say they're
No,
financing.
no. They're financing 425. That's the max.
Okay. All right, that's our financing. So I just copied and pasted this information from the MLS, which is what stuff is included with the property. And then in the bottom, it's what's excluded in here. Okay. And again, this is just a sample. So we're not going to put the patio furniture and all that stuff in here. But what we are going to see is once we get to the contract, did it bring all this information over, or is it something that you have to keep an eye on for the future reference? Okay.
Right.
All right. So we're going to go to next. Offer date is today. Expiration date, we're going to say tomorrow. Typically, I do like a 24-hour turnaround time. So I'll say, I don't know, I'll say 10 a.m. Just because it might take them a little bit to sign. Effective date, we don't have an effective date at this point because it hasn't been signed by all parties.
So that expiration date, I'm sorry, is that for when the sellers sign or when the client signs, the buyers?
When the last party signs, whoever that may be.
Okay.
That's an effective date, an executed date.
Well, all of them.
Yep.
And what happens if they don't sign?
And then there is no effective date. So that's why I'm going to leave it blank.
Okay. In other words, if tomorrow at 10 a.m. there's still like one of the parties that hasn't signed, it's not like the offer goes away, right?
It does. It expires. And then what we want to do is whoever that last party is that hasn't signed, you're going to want to change that date, like cross it off, put a new date or a new date and time, and then have everybody initial. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Remind me to talk about that once we get to that part.
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if less 24 hours is, too little time.
It just depends. You have to play it by ear based on your buyers. You get to learn how quick somebody is with stuff even prior.
That's why I'm worried, because they aren't that quick.
Yeah. So in your case, when you write up this offer, put whatever time you feel is
okay.
Standard. But I mean, I always move with a sense of urgency all the time. And especially when we were in a market where things were flying off the shelves real quick, it's like you needed to sign that thing within an hour.
Okay.
So it is that important.
Okay.
Right. And if you're doing a consultation with a buyer, you want to emphasize, hey, don't want to push you, but I just want you to know, once you're confident about what house we're going to go after, I'm going to do this part. And what's the saying? Timing is of an essence. Okay. Meaning,
yes.
Get on it quickly. If you're going to have an attorney read it, no problem. I understand. Just let me know that so I can, put everything accordingly into the contract, just in terms of expectations.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we're going to move on. And this is where you're going to put all the information of a person, like the buyers. So we're just going to say, I'm going to add myself. Bam. Okay. Let's see if I'm in here. There I am as the buyer. Let's put that. Okay. This is where you would enter all the buyer's information. Okay. You see the seller and all that stuff, the listing agent. I'm not too concerned about them. Maybe the listing agent, but because we pulled the information from the actual listing profile, it knows who the listing agent is. And here we get into forms. And because we picked a template in the beginning, it knows what forms to pick. What is this here? Give me 1 second. You know what? Now that I'm looking at this looks like for an actual listing, not the actual, give me one second.
Because exclusive right of sale agreement.
Yeah, this doesn't look like the proper one. So what
when
we're going to do.
When I did it, I stopped at other instead of seller's agent. I chose other. Yeah,
no, it's selling agent definitely would be the right one. I think the template we picked though was the wrong one. I feel like something changed from the last time I wrote an offer. So here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to go in here and pick the one that I know we need. And we're going to go to far bar. And I'm going to pick this here. If you notice the revision date, that's the latest revision date that they had. You can always pay attention to the revision dates because you want to use the most recent one. And that's the most recent one. Okay.
Okay, as is residential contract for sale, so, okay, we don't need the addendum to vacant land and so not the first one, we don't need the addendum,
We
only
don't need that. We don't need that at the moment. Maybe sometime during the contract you will.
Okay.
And what we're doing, what we're individually picking are things that you can create a package, a template package for in the future so
Mhm.
that you don't have to hand select them individually like we're doing. I'm only doing it because I picked the wrong template.
Okay,
Okay. So typically, we know that in the attachments, we have seller property disclosures, an HOA disclosure, and a CDD disclosure. Most of the time, if those weren't already in there in the attachments, I would be hand selecting them here. But because I know they're there, I'm not going to hand select them. What I am going to select is stuff that I know that it might apply to this property, obviously the contract. An appraisal contingency writer, meaning, hey, if the home doesn't appraise for 550 or whatever you guys agree upon, the deposit money is protected.
mhm,
Okay. And if the person's using FHA, we would click on this. I'm not going to do that in this case. If the property is in a flood zone, you would click on this.
Mm.
Basically, the more disclosures that you use that applies to the property, the more you're protecting your buyer. Okay. And this just takes time. You're not going to know every single one of these. Over time, you learn what applies, what doesn't apply. But it is a big deal when it comes to protecting your buyer and your client.
okay,
But at the same token, using extra disclosures like an appraisal contingency writer, when sellers were getting their way and things were moving fast,
mhm,
if you sent an appraisal contingency, they would be turned off and you probably would be an offer that they would not look at.
mm,
Okay. But right now, we're in a market where buyers are having a little bit more leverage and
Mhm.
you can protect your buyer by doing this. If
okay,
you don't protect them because it's a busy market, you have to explain to them, hey, I want you to know, typically this is what we normally would do, but it would decrease the probability of you getting the house. This is what it means to you in terms of risk level.
right,
Okay. The documents. So right now we're in forms. Let me actually, I'm sorry, I went there kind of quick. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So these are the forms. Documents to the right. If you notice let me see here. That little arrow bar that was up here to get you from one place to the next is no longer there. So I think we're at the end of everything. However, we still want to do a little bit more work. So we're sitting on forms right now. So now I'm going to use this right side to continue navigating, and I'm going to go to documents. And what I want to do here now is here, if you notice, the attachments we saw in the profile
mhm,
up here,
mhm,
there's 3 of them. CDD, HOA, seller property disclosures. You're going to see them here. You're not going to see them in the form section. You're going to see them here in the document section.
okay,
CDD, HOA, seller property disclosure. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a few more. We're going to add the MLS profile that I had downloaded on my desktop. And here you would also upload your pre-approval letter because that would be the facing letter. Like the first page when you present the offer. Okay.
yes,
All right. So at this point, you can go to, I would go back to forms. Everything's pretty much set in terms of this first part of it. Now I'm going to click on the contract itself. And if you notice, any information we entered should already be inputted, but we want to give it a second eye and just scroll down. So you notice where the appliances were included.
mhm,
When I copy and paste it, it's right here.
okay,
If you notice, it kind of cut off some of the word. So I would just maybe correct that, right? So, um, I would just, let's see, go right here. Okay. So if you notice what's in legal writing, that should already be included, assuming that the property comes with it, is right here on the very top. So if there's anything here like dishwasher, then I don't have to include it here. I can take that out.
Right.
All right. So that's where you have to kind of look at everything and say, hey, I noticed my seller wants to keep their draperies and their rods. So I got to make sure I put that here. Okay.
Right.
Whatever you put in writing will trump. Well, is that the right word? Trump.
No,
will remove this legal writing. You could even cross this off as well.
Okay.
And what you're trying to do is be very clear and upfront. We're not trying to hide anything from anybody. We're communicating up front. Hey, we're keeping this stuff and we're going to put it on the contract and everyone's going to acknowledge it. Okay. All right. Purchase price. It did pick up on this information. So that's good. Deposit. Good. Some people decide to leave this blank here. It says if left blank, then that automatically means that it's 3 days to make the deposit. Okay. For me personally, even if it's like that, I like to fill the stuff out. And I'm going to stop here for a second. I'm going to explain that here. What you're going to notice is over time is the more thorough you are, the more it's appreciated by the listing agent.
Okay.
Especially a listing agent who is that thorough type of mentality. And the reason why is because I can tell by how someone fills out a contract if I'm dealing with a rookie agent or not. And I also like the fact that when somebody's thorough, I don't have to go back and forth with them. Hey, you forgot to fill this out. Hey, you forgot to fill this out. Like, I don't have to go back and forth because to me, it's about my time.
Right.
And so when you're filling something out thoroughly, it's greatly appreciated and it kind of sets the tone about what the experience is going to be like if they accept your offer.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So that's a keynote. And, I'm not by any means, I'm not perfect when I fill out these contracts. I don't fill it out like an attorney would. But there's probably some things that I don't do correctly. But they're doable. It's not something where I get a lot of pushback on at all. But we just need to know that some real estate agents have a different mentality. They might be more thorough than me, or their broker is more compliant. They want more compliance. So they want specific things done in a specific way that maybe you may not be used to, or maybe you didn't have to change in the past with other offers. And it's just because their broker is compliant like that. Not compliant, but they're just that much more thorough. Okay, so just be prepared for that.
Okay.
Escrow agent, this is the title company who is going to be holding on to the deposit money. And if we go down to the very bottom of the actual MLS profile, we can find all this information here. And you would just copy and paste. Okay. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but for the most part, this is who they're using as a title company. And if the buyer is not, if they don't care about who the title company is, then you would just use, whoever they're providing there.
Okay. Is it usually the listing agent's choice or the seller's choice?
It could be anybody's choice. Or like if your buyer says, you know what, I want this specific title company, there's a box at the bottom that I'm going to show you that they can select it. Typically, it comes at a cost to your buyer if they decide to want to choose it. And it's probably because they're super comfortable with a title company or an attorney or title company / attorney, and they're willing to pay $1,000 to $1,500 more because they trust that attorney to do specific things, specific type of title insurance checks, whatever it may be. They just rather pay more for their party to do it. But to answer your question in short, most of the time, and it really just depends who your typical avatar is in terms of a client. Most of the time, the buyer doesn't care. Okay. So this would all be filled out, right? Additional deposit to be delivered. Sometimes some people will give extra money, like maybe after inspection or whatever it is, just to showcase how serious they are. If you're not going to do that, which I know I typically don't, just fill it in with 0 at the very least.
Mhm.
And if you notice here, before when we were entering it into the wizard, I said, how much are we financing? You said 425. This is one of the fields that didn't get relayed over.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to put a number here. And what it's going to do, it's going to change this bottom number because it's going to do math work for you. It's going to say 550. It's going to give you a credit for 5,500, and it's going to give you a credit for 425.
Okay.
You see how I changed it?
Yes.
It's saying, hey, this is the dollar amount of money that the buyer is the estimated dollar
Mhm.
amount of money that the buyer needs to bring to closing. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Expiration date. It did include the expiration date as we put it in previously. If you need more time, you can switch it. I would say I would even put a specific time. So, you know, if I know I'm going to finish this writing this offer and send it out to the buyer in 30 minutes, that means it's about 9:45. So I'm going to say 10 a.m. So it's a 24-hour turnaround time. And again, you'll get a feel for your buyer as to how quick they are and how slow they are.
Okay.
So if I know my buyer takes a little while, depending how you define that, and or if they just like to read word by word or whatever it is, put 72 hours, just put something that you feel is reasonable and just
Mhm.
communicate that to them when you send the offer. Say, hey, listen, this offer expires in 72 hours at 10, be very specific. It expires Monday at 10 a.m.
So
Okay.
if there's a counter, do we reset that?
If there's a counter, good question. I'm not 100% sure, but if you read here, it says here, should be returned by unless otherwise stated, time for acceptance of any counteroffer should be within 2 days after whatever, however you interpret that.
Okay.
So I couldn't tell you yes or no. Typically, if there's a counteroffer, there's a lot of crisscrossing initials to acknowledge the crisscross and the changes. There might be changes here up here to the price, the offer price. You would have that initialed as well and enter the proper counter price that you guys agreed upon. So
And
there's a lot of changes that are made after the fact.
And that's all done through the system as well, right? It's not like you have to sit
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically you can use Authentisign and they'll have like a strike through option, type in what the correct terms are, all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So that's that part. Closing date, 10/31. Some people will put 10/31 or before, depending if you get a feel for your lender as to like if they close things quickly or not.
Mhm.
So you're just letting them know, like, listen, at the earliest, at the latest, we'll close on this date, but there's a possibility we close before. So if you put or before, you usually need to come into an agreement with the other party if it's okay for them to move out and if they're ready to close.
Right.
May not assign this contract is typically what I choose. That's about 95, 98% of the time. It just means that the buyer cannot give it to another buyer to inherit this agreement. That has usually done with a lot of investors. If it's a cash transaction, you're selecting this one on top. If it's financing, you're putting the one in the bottom. This is the financing contingency. This is super important as well, because you're telling the seller, hey, by this amount of time, my lender will tell you if they're ready, if they've done enough verifications, and if the underwriters looked at it, they're going to provide you what they call a loan approval, meaning they've reviewed enough information and done enough investigation that even though there's a couple of conditions here and there, they're going to go ahead and give them the loan, assuming those couple of conditions are met.
Mhm.
And this is important because this has a lot to do of protecting your buyer's deposit money. If that loan approval is not being obtained, and you're on top of it in terms of the deadline date, and you know it's quickly approaching, you would want to communicate with all parties and say, hey, listen, I apologize. I talked to my lender or the buyer's lender, and they're having a lot of setbacks because of this hurricane that just passed through. It slowed things down, right? And so you would want to communicate that ahead of time, make sure that everyone's in agreement, and then you would want to create an extension on this. There's an individual extension form that you would select to extend this. Then you would say, hey, what kind of financing is it? You would select the proper one. If you leave this blank on top, it's 30 days. Some people put anywhere from 25 to 30 days. It just depends, you know.
Mhm.
I typically don't put anything for an interest rate here. I just kind of leave it blank.
Mhm.
It's amortized over 30 years. Here we're saying that the buyer's going to make the application for financing within 5 days. Believe it or not, some buyers do not get pre-approved. They just make an offer and then they get pre-approved later. So
Well, they might, I guess that's when they're extremely confident.
I guess, yeah, or they just don't have the proper guidance. But if my buyer's already pre-approved, I might put in here 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Right. Keep scrolling down. It's argued for some that if you're going to ask for closing costs, you would put it right here.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong. I don't put it here typically. I usually put it a little bit more towards the bottom, but you can put it here. So seller to pay, let's say 3% of the purchase price towards buyer's closing costs. Okay. So that specific detailed language, there's some that are okay with that. There's some that want you to word it differently, you know. So you have to come in, you have to come into an agreement.
I mean, as much as I would love for as much money to come to my buyers, I feel that maybe just asking for a flat fee of maybe 5,000 instead of.
You can do that too. Yep. It's whatever you want. You just put it in your writing. You put it right here.
Okay.
Or this is one of the places to put it. Scroll down, title evidence. Again, this is defaulted 15 days. I just put 15. No big deal. Here, this is where you're going to decide who's picking the title company, the seller or the buyer. If the buyer chooses the title company, they're going to be responsible for paying the owner's policy and some other charges, which typically accumulates about $1,500 more or less. This is where the buyer's choosing the title company, or you're choosing the title company for your buyer. In this case, we want to save the buyer money. We don't care about the title company, so we're just going to select this one. This one in Miami-Dade, I don't know what this is. I've never had to pay attention to it because we're not in that county.
Isn't that something to do with the there's a fee that they have to pay. I forget, it's like a certain percentage. I remember from the test.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Home warranty. This is where you put if you've agreed for the seller to pay for a home warranty or whatever the case may be, you put it here. If they haven't, you just put not of it. Doesn't apply, basically, right? Again, this is so shall pay installments prior to closing or buyer. You know, like this is really something you have to kind of read on, find out for yourself what this means to you and to your buyer. Typically, I would pay that, you know, the seller pays all installments leading up to closing and then the buyer pays afterwards. But this is when you get to the real legal aspect of things and understand like what's important to you and how you want to write your offer and protect your buyer. Okay. There's no right or wrong. It's just what you prefer.
Okay, I'll take a look at that.
Property inspection. This is important, right? How many days do you have to do an inspection? When it's a competitive market, you want to put 5 to 7 days and move quickly. When it's not as competitive, I'll say 10 days is standard. If you leave it blank, then it says 15. I think 10 days is a good, healthy number where you allow a couple of days of cushion where you don't have to move too quick, but nevertheless move. All right, this part here, page 11 of 12, you would select every single document that applies to the contract. So if it's FHA, you know, whatever forms you picked, like there's an HOA document we're going to fill out. We picked appraisal contingency. If there's a lead-based disclosure, you would pick that, right? Anything that applies. If there's not selected here, you can actually write it in here. Seller property disclosure. right? You're just saying, hey, in this package of the offer, these are all the documents, addendums that are included. And then additional terms, this is page 12. This is where you can also write the dollar amount of closing costs that's being requested. In addition to that, you can write anything else that is quote unquote custom that your buyer has requested. This is the section, this is the box where you put that stuff in. Okay, then that's all done. I would save it. I just have a habit of saving it. And then you can actually go to open form and you can select a second document. Appraisal contingency, whatever other documents you're filling out that apply to the contract. This is where you could just go here. You would say, hey, we're going to get a written appraisal from a licensed float appraisal on or before this date. Typically, I would put I know an inspection takes about 10 days. So I would say about a week later, I would say about 17 days. If you see here that if you leave it blank, we're saying that, hey, if we leave it blank, we're basically saying that this appraisal report will be in 10 days prior to closing date. So if we're saying that it's going to close October 30th, we're saying that by October 20th, we'll have the report. So if I leave it blank, I'll leave it like that. And if you offered 550, you're saying, hey, we want it to be appraised at least at 550.
Mm-hmm.
If it appraises less than this, and you're not going to agree to sell it less than that, that's fine. And let's say all parties walk away, then at least the buyer gets their deposit money back.
Okay.
Then I would save this one because that's all there is on this form. I will go back to the other one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the offense assign feature on top. You'll see it here on the left as well. But I just go here. And the reason I do this is because it's going to take this document and bring it into the next section. Okay, you see it right here.
Yeah.
Now we're at the part where we're going to set up all the signatures. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all the documents that apply to this. And because we uploaded them as documents, they're already here. All we got to do is just add them all. See, the MLS sheet is in here as well. Then the pre-approval letter would be here if we uploaded it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're all here. And then you can move it around in whatever order you want to present it. So if you want the pre-approval letter to come first, you can just move it up. And then it'll show you that one first.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to keep it like this for now. Then I'm going to go to signers. I'm going to start adding everyone who's involved from this particular transaction. Me, the buyer, right? Maybe the listing agent, right? She's not signing anything. Maybe I'll just maybe she's just getting a copy of it.
Okay.
And even if she gets it sent to her automatically after your buyer has signed, I would still text that person and say, hey, my buyer completed signing. Please check your email or your spam inbox. Let me know if you got it, or if you prefer for me to send it to you in a PDF version.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just want the PDF. And that's where the behind the scenes things happen that
Mm-hmm.
clients don't see, is the way you communicate with the other agent.
So we don't
Okay.
have to choose anybody else on that list, right?
I mean, you may or may not have to. I'm just running a sample. So if you had
Okay.
two buyers, you would pick two buyers.
All right. Okay.
You don't have to include the real broker. It's just you as an agent. There might be a document where you as an agent have to initial and sign, and sometimes that's the case. So you just have to pay attention to all those things. And sometimes you won't always see it, but you can always, make those changes when you catch it, when you missed it the first time around. And then that way you learn from that mistake or that experience, and you just remember that for next time around. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, if you notice, I included myself as the acting buyer. And because I included myself as a signer and designated myself as the buyer, in a lot of these documents, it's already going to input the signatures, the initials. So I don't have to manually do that there. And all I'm going to do is figure out which document it didn't include it in. And for the most part, anything that was not, you remember how we were at the wizard part and we were going through forms?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the other section where it says documents. The part where it says documents, like the HOA document or the CDD or the anything that was in the attachments or anything that we uploaded. Give me one second. Anything that we uploaded, those are typically ones that you have to manually place signatures for.
Okay.
Okay. There's the, so that's all done. Now this one, as you could tell, was one that was uploaded. So now I have to go to tools here. This is the buyer. Wherever else is involved in signing, you would just choose their name.
So did you just put your name as the buyer as an example?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just an example.
Be confused. Okay.
So I was okay. I need to write my name in here. I'm going to put my full name there. I need signer actions. I need the buyer to sign here. I agree. Yeah, Brent. Okay, usually that doesn't come up, but I think it's reading me as the buyer. So set a signature, boom, it's done. Typically, I think the system knows that it's me. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. Maybe this is the buyer. Let's do this. I'm gonna erase that. Go here. Okay, bam.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, there's no second buyer. It's just me. There's no other place to initial in the bottom. I'm going to the next document, doing the same thing.
So if I have two buyers, I would make room for another signature. Right?
Yeah, and you would have each person in here. So whoever whichever placements you're doing for a specific person, initials or signatures, you're going based off this.
Now, why is there already a buyer's initial in there?
That was a mistake on their part.
Oh, okay.
The seller signed there, so you probably would cross that off. So, let's go. I'm gonna put my initial here as the buyer. And then I would say, you know what? Let me use one of my markup tools. And just X that out or something, right? And then maybe even have everyone initial there. Have the seller initial there to acknowledge that that's not where they should have initialed. You would just communicate that to the agent. Say, hey, on this specific document, I noticed your seller signed on the buyer's initial part. I went ahead and crossed it out. If you can have them initial there, please, that would be great. Okay. So we'll keep going and so forth, right? So you keep going through all those motions, initials, right? I'm not going to do it at this point because I think you kind of catch the idea of everything. Once that's all done, now we're ready to deliver it. And so you can print it out if you like. You can download this version right now if you want to just use it as a backup. I'm ready to deliver it, so I'm going to put next. If there's anything that I need to put in the box for the buyer, hey, please sign by tomorrow, right? Let's say it's 9:31, 10 a.m. or whatever the date is tomorrow, right? Save. And then whoever else is involved, subject line, offer, your dream home or whatever it may be, right? Okay. And then whoever all the other parties are, maybe there's an agent involved. You would say, hey, please confirm receipt of offer. Also, this specific document had your seller's signature in the wrong place. Please have them acknowledge that, blah, 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 blah. You would save it and then you would send it. The email also has an expiration date. So if they don't get to it by this specific date and this time, it's going to reset and default and you have to resend it. And then you would just send it and it gets sent to them automatically. And then in your email account, when people are signing, you're always going to get notification of it, of them signing.
Okay.
Okay. So here's another thing I'll show you. All right. So that's done. I'm not going to do anything here. So I get out of here. I'll say save. If that was sent out, I would go here. If you notice, it's up here now, right? And it's showing me the participants and has anybody. If I would have sent it out, it would said sent. And I can actually click in here or click on this and I can see who has signed and who hasn't signed. My apologies, that's not it. Let's see here. Maybe it's not going to show me because I haven't sent it out. Here, let's go. Let's use this one real fast. See what happens.
About signing details.
There it is, right there.
Okay.
So it will show me, hey, who has authenticated, meaning received it, and they went in there, and then who signed it, meaning who approved it. There's
Mhm.
times that some people think like they'll sign, but they never enter finish at the end. They just, they finish, or they thought in their head that they're already done signing, but they forgot to press the button finish.
If, well, once this goes through and let's say they accept,
Mhm.
is there another contract that has to be created?
No.
Or that's it, right?
You have an executed contract at that point.
Okay.
That's it. Questions? I'm going to send you this recorded version, by the way, for your reference.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I think I'm good. There was only the one on making sure that I have all the right forms, but I'll go through that as I'm creating it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so hopefully they won't be insulted by, 50,000 less.
Hey, whatever it is, just as long as your buyers know,
Mhm.
go from there.
And then we move on to the next house.
That's it.
All right. What are you talking about?
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm going to get this going. Now, do you end up receiving a copy or no?
No, I have nothing to do with it. Mhm.
Okay. So does Rebecca get a copy? Or no?
She eventually will, and that's where you want to get familiar with SkySlope. If you got an email from Real Broker regards to SkySlope, you want to make sure you create a username and password. And there is videos on Facebook Workplace on how to utilize that. So wait to finish this part of it, and then you cross those roads when you get there.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice. Slope. No, slope.
SkySlope, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Wish me luck.
All right.